Hello and welcome back to the Premier Injuries channel. Today, I'm talking to the amazing Chris Miller from the amazing Extra Inch podcast. Always great to chat to you. And actually, you're the first team analyst for the season. We're going to be doing team by team analysis, so do stay subscribed to that. We're going to be talking all things Tottenham. But yeah, Chris, how are you today? And also, please tell everybody about the Extra Inch podcast. Amazing work.
Thank you, mate. No, I really appreciate the love at the start. So I'm very hot. I'm very hot and sticky. I would love to have my fan on now, but I'm sure the noise would be quite disruptive. So I'm just grinning and bearing it. So the Extra Inch been going for quite a few years now. In fact, I think we've been going. It might even be 6 years, which seems crazy. But we're a weekly podcast analysing Spurs from a kind of data, tactical, statistical point of view. There's three of us. There's myself, I host it, and then Nathan Clark, who is we call him our tactics guy, and then Bardi, who is our resident Italian, who I like to say is the link between Nathan and your everyday fan. So, Bardi actually goes to matches and stuff rather than just looking at a laptop. We got a good little thing going on. Good chemistry, good connection. We all get on incredibly well. And over the last couple of years, we've launched a Patreon where we put statistical and analytical pieces behind our paywall. I do a second podcast behind the paywall called Straight Off the Training Ground with Chris Summersell, who is a big Spurs fan, an analyst, and a coach working in professional football. I love doing that with Chris. He's just fantastic. And there's loads of other bits and pieces on there. We have a Discord community, thriving Discord community, which is a complete and utter tonic to football Twitter. We can actually have, progressive, sensible discussions on there about all kinds of things as well as football. So I must say all is well in the world of the Extra Inch right now. It's going from strength to strength. I'm glad to say.
Yeah, and as people to our channel will know and can see from my background, I'm an Arsenal fan, and even I can appreciate the amazing work that you do. I dip in and out. I'm not an ex-sub though, as you like to call your people. So yeah, just quickly on that, where can people find to become an ex-sub?
Sure. So patreon.com/the Extra Inch. We kind of make it clear on there what you get for your money. We have three tiers. One's just a supporter tier. You don't get anything, but you just kind of say thank you, I guess, for the free content you're otherwise getting every week. And then there's a couple of other tiers, but essentially you get the same stuff with both of them. One of them is just for rich people.
I love that. Let's move it on though, because Tottenham are in the riches at the moment. You've got a rich vein of form. You're playing so well. There's a lot of positives about it. And I think today's chat is going to be very, very positive because, at the start of last season, you probably wouldn't have expected that. But it's all got to go back to one man, Antonio Conte. In terms of it, has it been a long while since Tottenham as a club has been this positive about a season ahead?
I don't think I've ever approached a season with this much optimism and positivity. In the 90s, when I was a teenager, I would sometimes get a bit overexcited about some signings. And maybe sort of you'd think, oh, what might happen? And we didn't quite have the same, United were incredible, but other than United, you didn't quite have the same dominance that you have now of a core group of teams. So you could kind of, you could dream on the new signing coming in and propelling you to second or third or something. I think Spurs, in the position we are right now, if you look at what Conte achieved last year, we were clear third for under his time at Spurs. I think he's absolutely on course to cement that. And then you start thinking, well, if Liverpool or City drop points, then we're the best place to steal in there. And that is a really ridiculous thing to be saying as a Spurs fan. It almost doesn't feel real. It's lovely. There's so much positivity around the club.
Would you say that this is even more positive than the Poch days? Because those were the good days, as a lot of people that was kind of the problem before this season. There was that hangover, the loss of Pochettino as this amazing, uniting, legendary figure of the club.
Yeah, I mean, it was slightly different. It was different because we were at a completely different stage then. We didn't have the stadium revenue. The stadium revenue is the game changer for us. You know, it was a £1 billion investment that ENIC and Daniel Levy made for the long term, and now we have huge amounts of money coming in on a weekly basis or fortnightly basis, plus events. You know, really big bands are playing at our stadium. NFL is happening at our stadium. We're making more money than we know what to do with, basically. Hence having a £150 million war chest. I love the phrase war chest. Whenever a team's got a war chest, you know, they mean business, and Spurs have had a war chest this summer. Yeah, so that's the difference, really. I still think Pochettino is, just think what he achieved at Spurs at the time, where he took us from and to, was just absolutely mind-blowing. But Conte's come in at a higher point and looks to be able to take us onto the next level. And that's what we've been hoping for. That's not to say I think Pochettino could have done the same if he'd come in at the same stage, and maybe he will in the future. Maybe he'll come back in the future and do something similar. But Antonio Conte, it has to be said, really does seem to be the right man for the job at the moment.
I want to examine then, you know, the data after Conte's arrived, as we have previously discussed, so if people want to check it out, what went wrong with Nuno. But just across the board, a little quick glance at the numbers that we're going to go into a bit more, you know, detail a little bit later. Outstanding, top 3 across the board, top 4 across the board, defence and attack. But let's look at the tactics. I mean, what was tweaked? What was changed that managed to make the Tottenham team one of the best in the league?
So Conte plays a back 3, plays 3-4-3. We've nearly always played 3-4-3 under Conte. There've been a couple of exceptions where we've played 3-5-2, and actually that worked quite well as well. So it's a back 3, which means you've got a lot more protection for players who were struggling in a back 4. Ben Davies and Eric Dyer are the obvious two, both absolutely sensational last year. Easily Ben Davies' best year at Spurs, I would say. And I would say, Eric Dyer, by far the best form he's shown at centre-back. He had a really outstanding season in defensive midfield one year, but this is comfortably his best form at centre-back. And there's a lot of sort of anger on his behalf from Spurs fans that he's not in the England squad, because he was pretty much immaculate last season. He was really, really impressive. So we got the back 3, Davies on the left, Romero, who I just think the sun shines out of his backside. He's on the right, Dyer in the middle. The wing backs, which to be honest were the sort of weak point last year. You've got 2 in midfield who are, I would say, mainly doing defensive things, but they're transitioning the ball as well. And then you've got a front 3 who tend to play quite close together. The one where how do I phrase this? The one who is nearest to the ball will come towards the ball, and the one who's furthest from the ball will make a movement in behind, typically. And then obviously Harry Kane, who drops deep, and I mean, he just does whatever he wants at this point. He's got free rein to do whatever he wants, and the system worked quite early on, to be honest, from Conte. You could sort of see improvements, certainly defensively. It took a little while for the front 3 to click, and then when we signed Kulusevski, it went up a level. The January signings, Kulusevski and Bentancur, made such a huge difference to the team. And I couldn't be happier with, you know, the way it panned out. It was just, but Kulusevski, Son and Kane is just an incredible front 3 to watch.
Scary. One of the best in Europe already, and we shall see how it progresses this season. But you've touched on it already there, defence. And what I found fascinating was Conte, when he came into the team, he cited that as one of the areas that he felt he could improve just through coaching. and the data firmly backs that up. Spurs went from 10th place defensive data to being top 4. And there was a swing of around 10 expected goal difference. Last season, you had a 5 expected goal difference. And then this season, it ended with a 25. So over the course of a season, 20 improvement. I mean, do you believe that with a whole season under his tactics, his drills, signings as well, can the team push on further?
Yeah, I do think so. I think there's another level that the team can move to now. Because what we have to remember is they didn't have the full Conte pre-season. They were still, many of them, learning the shape, the system. It's a very specific system that does require sort of detailed knowledge of what you do in every particular situation. And with that under our belt, plus some reinforcements, and importantly, a new set piece coach, you can kind of see there's room for growth here for sure. And as much as I think Ben Davies was absolutely outstanding last year, really, really good. I still think bringing in Clement Longley, who will be his competition, gives you more on the ball. Davies has been a really, really immaculate defender, but Longley is better at playing out than Davies, undoubtedly. And that's the next step. It's have someone as good as Romero, or nearly as good as Romero, at playing out on that side. And goodness me, that's a scary thought.
Let's talk about, you've mentioned Longley, the two other kind of defensive transfers, Perisic and Basuma. We can't really talk about Spence because he's not joined yet, but I mean, you can bring it into the chat as well. How's this going to see the midfield, obviously with Basuma, but as well Perisic and Spence as well? What's going to be the back line there?
Sure. So Perisic will, I suspect, rotate with Sessegnon. Reguilón is likely to leave. We expect him to go to Sevilla. And to be honest, that's not a huge surprise to me. Some Spurs fans seem quite surprised by that. I personally always thought that Sessegnon was better suited to the Conte system. I think I might have even said that on your podcast last time I was on. Reguilón's an excellent left back. I don't think he's an excellent left wing back personally. He's a little bit chaotic. Everything's kind of happening at 100 miles an hour with Reguilón, and there's a bit of lack of composure in the final third. Perisic is ice cold, fantastic crosser of the ball off both feet, attacks the box really well. We expect him to chip in with sort of 5 to 7 goals, hopefully. So yeah, there's lots of games to play next season in a ridiculously short space of time because of the World Cup. So I expect plenty of rotation between Sessegnon and Perisic at left wing back. Basuma, another fantastic player, obviously. Everyone knows him fairly well from his time at Brighton. I would say in Højbjerg, who I really, really rate, Skip and Bentancur, we already had a solid midfield there. Add in Basuma, and you can basically pick any two from those 4. It means very healthy rotation options. I don't think we'll have a first choice necessarily. I can kind of see arguments. I mean, if you asked 10 different Spurs fans who their preferred 2 would be, you'd get 10 different. You'd get lots of different combinations. Put it that way. I personally think Højbjerg is still the best of our midfielders, even with Basuma coming in. But I'm very willing to revise that opinion come December when I've seen plenty of Basuma, and also once I've seen Skip with a full Conte pre-season under his belt, because Skip's a really, really talented player as well. So I feel kind of equally comfortable with any of those 4 playing in combination. So yeah, pretty excited about that. And then Longley, as I said, I think he will rotate with Davies. I don't necessarily think there'll be I think it's Davies' place to lose because he was so outstanding at the back end of last season in particular. But Longley does add something in his ability to carry from the back and pass out from the back. And then Spence, it does seem like it's going to get done this week finally. He's been linked all summer, a player I'm very, very fond of. I think he's a really, really exciting player.
What does that do to Doherty's position?
Yeah, so on the right, it would leave us with Spence, Matt Doherty, and Emerson Royale, which is interesting. Doherty has played quite a lot on the left as well. And given that we now are able to make 5 subs, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we went into the season with 5 wing backs. So 2 left, 2 right, plus Doherty, you can kind of cover either side. And Sessegnon can cover either side in theory as well. And Perisic has sometimes played in the rights. Spence, again, he might have to work his way into the team, but he's very different to our other right wing backs, and to be honest, probably different to our other wing backs entirely generally as well. He's a ball carrier. We don't have anyone else who carries the ball in the way that he does, and we haven't had that since Kyle Walker left. He is absolutely rapid. He loves to kind of commit a player, make him think he's going to go inside and then quickly shift his hips and go on the outside. His crossing is a bit erratic. There's still some work to do there. But I see him being incredibly useful at carrying the ball up that side and then hopefully cutting it back to Kulusevski to deliver.
In terms of it then, do you think Doherty, start of the season, he'll be kind of nailed, but then Spence is going to be, allowed to feel his way into the squad?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there'll be... put it this way, I think the minutes will be shared fairly equally.
Through the whole season then after an initial start.
Yeah. I mean, it might end up that we almost have like a Champions League team and a Premier League team. That's one way of doing it, because then you have the kind of the relationships start to form on the pitch. That's possible. But ideally, you just want rotation when players need a rest, when they're in the red zone, so to speak, get them out of the team, get someone else in. And hope that the quality doesn't drop off too much. And that's the position we're in now, where we do have genuinely, legitimately several backups for most of our positions.
Let's move the attention further up the pitch, because one of the bits of data that stood out for me, kind of looking into the team, it's amazing. Big chances created. Conte ball, since he's been there, the team have had the most big chances created of any team. So overall, the side created 5th highest total chances in that 28 game period. But then looking at it, 76 big chances created was so impressive, because it was 10 more than Liverpool and 11 more than Manchester City. I mean, what about the style of play allows your team to create such brilliant chances?
To be honest, I think that is largely down to Kane and Son. A lot is made of the sort of telepathic understanding, but it's so true. You can't overstate it. Kane receives the ball to feet and instantly he knows the run Son's going to make, and Son makes that run so well. We've watched players over the years at Spurs who just don't know how to time a run. Jermaine Defoe is one that springs to mind immediately. A fantastic finisher, but the amount of times that goes offside, it used to drive me to distraction. Son stays on side incredibly well. He times his runs perfectly, and if you're running in past the last defender and Harry Kane's feeding a ball to you, you're going to get a big chance. You're going to run through and you're going to get a big chance. And then add to that Kulusevski, who had a ridiculous impact as well. He probably does get a little bit of extra space because teams want to make sure they're taking care of Kane and Son. And so you bring in this other guy who's incredible to exploit that. And then next season, I think with Perisic, we can kind of take it up a level again. It means we're going to have better quality from wing back. Basuma in midfield will give us a bit more quality as well. So, and then as I said, the set piece coach coming in, you got different chances coming from different areas as well. So I really do believe that the big chances created will just continue to rise.
So just on that kind of chance creation thing as well, last season, really amazing to me, because you look at the narratives. Kane is the chance creator. He's doing so much in the squad, but actually Son had the most chances created of anyone in the team. And it just kind of shows you the qualities and the things that each player is doing for the team. But I do want to talk tactics just once again in terms of that. I mean, with Perisic coming in, maybe Spence with Doherty. Do you think that this opens up more opportunities for maybe Kulu and Son to maybe have even more goals, even more kind of assists? Because that's the style of play, isn't it? That they stick out wide, the wing backs. And so Son and Kulu are kind of inside forwards, basically with carte blanche to go on goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were so good at counter-attacking last season, certainly in the last half of last season. But where we were slightly less good was when we had settled possession and we were being asked to break teams down and pick a lock. What Perisic gives you is constant quality coming from the flank. So expect Spurs to score a lot more headed goals. Expect Perisic to be getting on the end of things as well. So if it's Doherty or Spence or whoever crossing, or Kulusevski crossing from the right, expect Perisic to be coming in at the far post. And I think that would be really, really helpful. I mean, just generally having quality attacking players like Perisic just means that the opposition's got something else to think about. They've got another problem to solve, which naturally leads to more space for some of the other attacking players, which is very exciting.
Well, let's talk about outgoing, ingoing attacking players. We've seen Bergwijn go. He had lots of fun moments at the club, but obviously it's not meant to be. But we've seen Richarlison added to the squad. So what do you think this kind of signals about the team going forward this season? Do people have to be worried about rotation of the forwards? Kane, Kulu, Son, is there going to be time a little bit more managed, especially with the context of the World Cup?
Yes, absolutely. So Nathan and I had a conversation about this on the podcast this week, and Nathan said to me, do you think Richarlison was worth 60 million? It sounds like a lot of money. And my argument is, yes, he's worth 60 million because him being there makes Kane and Son fitter because they're not having to play every minute of every game. But I really like Bergwijn. I think Bergwijn's a really good player, but Conte obviously didn't think that he thought the drop off was too big to be able to rotate Kane out, for example, for the odd game here and there. Richarlison is such a big name, such a quality, solid Premier League player that I don't think there'll be the same fear. So it does mean that Kane or Son could be benched at any moment, and we'll have a quality player who can come in. And for that reason alone, I think the 60 million is money well spent. I really like Richarlison. He's very intense. He's kind of just a relentless presser. He's slightly erratic with his finishing. That's fair to say, but he's pretty good in the air, and he has. I don't know if you've kind of seen much of his finishing, but he's got this kind of very nice sort of swept finish where he kind of really rifles the instep through the ball and passes it into the corner very firmly. And if he starts finding the bottom corners with any regularity, then it's just going to mean that Conte feels even less concern about leaving Kane out. So yeah, I definitely think that their places aren't as nailed as they were the season just gone. But I mean, obviously they're our two best players and they're going to play plenty.
I mean, in terms of Richarlison, then I don't know the date on Bergwijn. I forgot to look, but Richarlison seems to be fairly two-footed. Do you think that was also one of the reasons that he was brought in? A quarter of his shots through his career have been with his weaker foot, and 27% of his career goals have been with his left. Do you think that was part of the reasoning as well, along with his incredible work rate, some of the best in Europe?
Yeah. And Conte has pointed out that he sees him being able to play across the front three. So it's not just Kane and Son that can rest, it's Kulusevski as well. So I definitely do think that's part of the reason why he was signed. So I would expect him to be able to get shots away from either side of the box, essentially.
And in terms of you've kind of described his shooting technique, and some people have been critical of Richarlison's finishing. But do you factor in as well maybe the fact of the teams that he's played in, Watford and Everton? They've not supplied the best chances. And you look at the fact that he's had, in terms of it, I think since he's been in the Premier League, the most important goals in terms of points winning goals per game. So in terms of it, he's had the biggest impact of winning games for his clubs. Do you think that maybe that shows that he has the quality, and maybe at Tottenham he can improve that kind of XG per shot, shots on target, or all those kind of important bits of underlying data?
Yeah, I definitely think there's something in that. I think like you say, the quality of chances will be greatly improved. Everton, though, a mess, an absolute mess. He carried them pretty much single-handedly last season. And yeah, I mean, I really do think that his movement is excellent. His running in behind is going to be really useful. And in the same way that Kane looks for Son, he'll be looking up and seeing Richarlison there every now and again as well. So he should find he'll get high quality chances, and we'll put that finishing to the test. I mean, he'll get more chances as well, is the other thing. So even if his finishing remains at a similar level, just purely by the volume, we'll hopefully see an uptick in his goals.
Now, I want to talk a little bit of not quantifiable with data. This is maybe more eye test or insights that you can give as well with, how much you analyze the club. But I think looking at the now departed Bergwijn's last minute win against Leicester, it kind of exemplified maybe one of the huge differences under Conte was this never say die spirit of Tottenham. The scary thing, I think, for a lot of teams was even if they're 1 or 2-0 up in the dying embers of the game, Spurs looked like they could always come back, and they never, ever gave up. I mean, is this something that Conte has introduced, like I said, unquantifiable, but a newfound unbreakable psychology that people have to look out for?
We had that under Pochettino. We always played until the last minute under Pochettino, and the amount of comebacks we had was unprecedented in my sort of lifetime as a Spurs fan. And then under Mourinho, that was completely destroyed. The players' self-confidence was completely destroyed over a period of time. I'm not saying that was just solely due to his character. It's partly down to how the team struggled to kind of gel and connect, and ultimately lost faith in the approach. But Conte's worked hard to bring that self-belief back, and you can really sort of see the hunger now amongst the players. They really do think that they are a good team. And the way they're talking about things in pre-season, they are very, very excited for the coming season. I mean, the Leicester game, to be honest, we outplayed Leicester throughout that game, and we did deserve the win, but no one thought that we'd score 2 last-minute goals. It was pretty outrageous. But yeah, I mean, we had played really well, and we picked apart some holes in the Leicester side before the 2 goals came. So I don't think it was necessarily just down to sort of mentality. There was definitely a tactical element there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of self-belief now that had been missing over the last year, 18 months.
And this translated into points, from the 2nd of November. If the league had started then, you guys would have come comfortably third, 56 points. But there was still some 14 points off Liverpool and 17 off Manchester City. Do you believe that the team has what it takes now, maybe with that depth, with the transfers, with a lot of the other things that we've discussed, including the pre-season? Is that gap going to be closed? However much, I don't know, but will it be closed a little bit this season?
I think so. I think the 2 biggest weaknesses, so let's say 3 biggest weaknesses in our team were left centre-back. And again, caveat that with really, really respected Davis's performance last year, but I think there was an obvious, on the ball at least, there was an obvious improvement to be made. Right wing back, hopefully Spence will really help with that, although maybe he's not the kind of win now signing that a lot of fans would want. And then back up forward, someone to take the burden away from Kane. And we've quietly gone about improving all of those areas. And then the other thing, which we've not really spoken about much yet, is the appointment of Gianni Vio, who is a set-piece coach. Our podcast has been saying for about 3 years now that we need a set-piece coach. It's particularly perfect for a Conte team because he's a patterns-based coach. Everything it's A to B to C to D. There are set automations that he wants the team to carry out, starting with a throw-in means you can basically begin that automation when you've got the ball on the touchline in your hands. And I think that, having a throw in the opposition half can suddenly lead to a Spurs chance being created when previously that ball would have been back to the goalkeeper. So let's hope that, or from a Spurs perspective, let's hope that our set piece coach can get to work on that. And then obviously, you improve your direct free kicks, which we've been absolutely hopeless at over the last few years. Kane just steps up and blasts them into the wall every time or over the bar. If we can improve our direct free kicks and our corners, and our defending from corners as well, the swing, I really believe that the goal difference swing from set pieces alone can be significant. And then suddenly you've got another 7, 8, 9, 10 points, and you're closing the gap in that way as well. So yeah, I feel really good. I feel really good about the improvements we've made. I actually think Mane leaving Liverpool is a huge loss as well. I obviously Luis Diaz is a fantastic player, but I'm not 100% sure that they'll have replaced Mane as they might have done. So I expect a slight drop off from Liverpool. And then who knows with City? Haaland is he's an incredible player, or has been an incredible player in Germany, but often players come from Germany and struggle to adapt in their first season. So we just don't know how City will be. And there's rumours today they're sending Bernardo Silva as well, who obviously was a really important player from last year. So who knows? I'm not saying Spurs are going to win the league. I think it's way too early to say Spurs are going to win the league. But I think what we need to aim to do is put ourselves in the position to win the league if the other two fail.
Yeah. And it seems like you've done that with quite a few of the transfers and Conte as well. And I just want to say as well, the fact that you beat Man City twice last season, the first time around was during the Nuno period. Maybe we can counter, maybe discount it, I don't know. But, I think you can count it almost on your hands how many times people have done that ever against Pep Guardiola in one season. And then obviously you gave Liverpool difficulty in their campaign to win the league as well. So even with the big boys, you now have that kind of ability to beat them too. There's no team that you fear. It's everybody kind of fears playing you. But yeah, let's talk about it then. You've kind of already opened it out a little bit, but yeah, the set piece thing is huge. Marginal gains, so much can be taken from this. And Gianna Vio himself said that set pieces are a 15-goal season striker that never gets injured. It's a huge moment for the club. You only had 8 set piece goals all last season, not the best defensive record, with 8 for goals conceded and XG conceded from dead balls. Is this almost like one of the only Achilles heels now being turned into one of your biggest strengths?
I think so. I really think so. I personally, I think just taking Kane off free kick duty will help. He actually did take one and score one in our first preseason friendly. Heavily deflected, may I add. He sort of just drilled it low and it pinged off someone's foot and went in the bottom corner. But taking Kane off set pieces will hopefully lead to more goals. Son takes a pretty good corner, and that's probably why his chance creation is. I'm sure his chance creation is supplemented by his corners. They're not bad at all, but as a team, we can be a lot better at attacking corners. Obviously, you look at some of the players we've added. Lenglet's not bad in the air. Perisic is very good in the air. That's going to be helpful as well because that replaces Reguilon, who's not strong in the air, and Ben Davies, who's kind of okay. Jed Spence is tall. I think he's over 6 foot. So adding tall players is probably going to help defensively and offensively as well. I just think it's been a no-brainer for Spurs to hire a set-piece coach for several years, and I'm very glad that Conte's made it happen.
And they always say that, a good team with set pieces, 20% of your goals should come from the dead ball situation. So kind of looking at a rough calculation of that would be 12 extra goals to your output this season in terms of it. Oh, sorry, that's just since Conte has been there. So add 12 on to the 60 under him, and that's pretty fantastic. Looking at that, it's those sorts of things that can win you matches. But in terms of that, then you've mentioned a few there, but who do people have to look out for on the set pieces then? You said Son will probably be taking them. Is there anybody else who might be? And also, who's going to get onto the end of them? Who's going to be, putting it into the back of the net?
It's really interesting because when you bring in a set piece coach, you kind of think he'll probably start from he won't think about the baggage at all. He'll just want to watch them all take some corners and free kicks and training and then go from there. So we might see a couple of surprises. You never know. But yeah, Son's been on corner duty primarily, and he does take a reasonable in-swinger, I would have to say. Obviously Son's both footed as well, so he can, if needs be, he can take with either foot, but they are predominantly with his right. I would expect Son to carry on taking them. In terms of getting on the end of them, I'd say Eric Dyer is a good shout. Eric Dyer is really good in the air and probably should be scoring more. If we can find ways to get him free in the box, I think he's a pretty good shout. The other thing about Eric Dyer is he does take a really decent direct free kick. They're not always kind of the pinpoint top corner ones. So I think that's Kane's problem, to be honest. He always wants to put it right in the top corner, and it's really difficult to do. Dyer just kind of gets it over the wall and towards goal, sort of plays the percentages. So maybe he's a candidate for the next direct set piece taker as well. Other players to look out for, I mentioned Perisic given the air. I definitely think that he's one to watch from set pieces, and Romero. Romero's, his movement is so positive, so aggressive. He can get free, and then a lot of kind of tenacity in the challenge. Expect him to win some headed duels. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he ends up bagging a couple of headers from set pieces.
And you've said that a lot of the weaknesses in the side have been addressed by Gianni Vio coming in as the set piece specialist. Also, a lot of them with transfers. Is there any other that you see going into this season that worry you just a tad?
I think right wing back is probably going to be the weakest area. I am really, really excited about Spence, but obviously it'll be his first season in the Premier League. And so we can't have our expectations set too high. And maybe compared to Perisic on the other side, maybe that's a slightly weak area. And the other thing that I think we need to be slightly cautious about is Hugo Lloris, who was very good last year, but he's quite an old goalkeeper now. He's 36, I think. And goalkeepers have fast drop-offs. It's like one day they're good and then the next day they're bad, and that's sometimes how it works out. And we have to start planning for life after Lloris. Hopefully we'll get another season from him where he's really good and his reactions are still good, but that's definitely one area of the team I've kind of got an eye on for sort of next round of improvements. Aside from that, you could say we kind of lack a bit of creativity in midfield if we're being asked to unlock a defence. I can see us signing an attacking midfielder, to be honest. I can still see us making more signings. We've been linked with James Maddison, Memphis Depay, players who are creative and skillful. So that I mean, some people say that's a weakness. Personally, I think Conte, his system kind of does a lot of the creating for you. You don't necessarily need to have someone who can really find those passes, because the movement allows the passes to be a bit more straightforward. I think we're really good.
just put that out there. But in terms of it then, kind of maybe a few final questions. are you worried about the extra pressure of the Champions League?
Yeah, so this is the other thing. This is the other weakness. Conte is famously not good at competing in the Champions League, and whether the Champions League will have a negative impact on a league form remains to be seen, particularly in the light of the condensed fixture schedule more generally. I mean, I do think the 5 subs will help with that. I can certainly see Conte absolutely taking advantage of the 5 subs and probably making 5 subs every single game. But yeah, it's so hard to know how he'll manage the Champions League. We've got a decent squad. We genuinely do have a decent squad with lots of backup players, as long as we can keep everyone fit. A couple of key injuries, and suddenly the depth, when you're fighting on 2 fronts, will start to look a little bit of a problem. So yeah, I completely agree that the Champions League could be one area where we kind of struggle a little bit to kind of maintain our levels across 2 games a week.
Now, obviously, you're in the Champions League, and that's, you've qualified for that. But every team is going to suffer because of the World Cup being mid-season. And there's lots of, different kind of ways to look at it. But I suppose in terms of Tottenham, the problem is going to be fatigue in regards to your players going off to the World Cup. If England do well, Harry Kane will be playing late, and then obviously very, very quick turnaround. I think it's only 8 days between the end of the World Cup and the 26th of December. Lovely Boxing Day fixtures, but realistically not enough time for these players to have a good recovery period. I mean, is that one of the big concerns as well? You've mentioned Lloris as an older player, less demands on a goalkeeper, but there's so many in the squad. It's a symptom of you being so good, but at the same time, it's going to stretch you.
Yeah, and it's not just the physical demands; it's the mental demands as well. It's the pressure that playing in such a high level tournament puts on players mentally, and then they come back with some of the baggage of whatever's happened during that tournament, and that is definitely something that will impact on Spurs, no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen it before in the past with Kane. When he gets overplayed, the performance levels just drop. And we've also seen it with Højbjerg, actually. Højbjerg has played and played and played and played. I mean, it is ridiculous the amount of football he's played over the last 2 years. I don't know how he's done it, frankly. He's a machine. But as a result of playing every game, basically, his levels really did drop off at the back end of the season before last. And I'm glad to say they were very much back last year when he was being managed a bit better. He went out of the Europa Conference League quite early, so he was playing 1 a week, and he looked fantastic for that. If he's suddenly asked to do a bit more, he might struggle as well. But again, we've got a really good midfield quartet, so hopefully the rotation will be there. So I think it comes back to intelligent use of the squad, plenty of rotation, both before and after the World Cup, and then careful injury management. We've had seasons in the past where we've not managed injuries at all well. Kane a good example of that. I'm hoping that Conte's team will be kind of on the case with injury management.
Well, this is one of the next questions actually was, the Tottenham team from our perspective with the Premier injuries data, you had a really good kind of season in terms of managing it. But the bigger positive will be a full pre-season. Kane not going to an international tournament, not being overplayed by England. I guess partially he was because he played the ridiculous Nations Leagues. That's my opinion, by the way, not Premiers. But, it was interesting to see that all these players, they're being worked very hard, but they're going to get that unity as well. But let's look at the numbers. So you did well in reducing the number of time loss injuries. We're 6th for total injury numbers. And most impressively, in terms of quite a packed season, because you did have a bit of European in there as well. You had 5th for time loss injuries per 1K minutes. Are you kind of excited to see how Conte can improve this because of that very big preseason that was missing last year? So it might even improve further.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think. I mean, so we did an open training session in South Korea earlier this week, and the players did a full training session in 66% humidity, very hot temperatures. They did sort of several drills finishing in a full match with some rules. It wasn't like a proper match. There were some rules. So when you got into the final third, you were unopposed and you could have a shot at goal kind of thing. They did that. They were all absolutely blowing and sweating and looking knackered. And then Conte said, right, lads, now we're going to do some lengths. And he had them do sets of 3 lengths. So literally the whole length of the football pitch, all the players would run up to one end of the pitch, then run back again, and then run back again. Then they'd have like a 30, 40-second break, and then they'd do another 3. And then they'd have a 30 or 40-second break, and they'd do another 3. 42 lengths later, Harry Kane was literally vomiting on the side of the pitch. Heung-min Son had collapsed and had to be pulled up by Kane, and several players just couldn't complete it. And there were several players that absolutely excelled. So a couple of players I haven't mentioned actually. So Davinson Sanchez, Pape Matar Sarr, who's our new midfielder who we signed and then loaned back out last year, who actually might be on loan again this year. We're not quite sure yet what's happening with him. And then Troy Parrott, who I really have high hopes for, who's a young forward who can also play on the right. They were kind of a last one standing at the end of this. But I think this kind of drill is what Conte's become known for. He has a fitness coach who's sort of seen as a military man, basically. He's the guy putting them through it. He's loved. The club love, the players love him. Not only is this building up their stamina, it's building up the ability to keep going when you think you're done, when you think the tank's empty. It's saying, no, you have got more. See, you've shown you've got more. That kind of second wind thing, but also there's the team spirit element. Going through that sort of level of suffering together. We're all really feeling this. Back in the changing room afterwards, Matt Doherty said they could barely speak to one another because they were just so exhausted. But that does breed camaraderie and team spirit. So there's so many benefits to it. Although it did feel quite brutal watching them being put through their paces, I must admit, I did feel quite sorry for them, especially Kane when he was throwing up.
And I guess, do you know if the team have worked on kind of finishing after a session as well? Because kind of looking at the psychology and things around penalties, one of the things that Gareth Southgate did with England was they'd play a full match, loads of sessions, and then they would take penalties to kind of replicate at the end of the match or, in the final of the tournament. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But again, I would say that they prepared for everything as much as they could have. Do you know if Conte's doing that as well, so that late in game players will be assured in themselves, yes, we're fatigued, but we can still finish?
So I've not seen evidence of that yet. And I don't think many of them would have been able to stand up, let alone take a penalty after their 42 lengths. But yeah, I completely agree. And that's something that Pochettino used to do regularly. They would always do a finishing drill at the end, even if it was just 2 or 3 shots each and then back in. I do think that's a really, really important way to end the session. So yeah, I'm sure it's something they'll have in mind.
Okay, so last question. Where do you think you'll come next season?
Oh, I mean, I do think we'll finish third because I still, as much as I think Liverpool and City have capacity to drop off, they're just brilliant. They've got endless resources and Salah's ridiculous. And yeah, De Bruyne and Haaland. I mean, it's going to be really, really hard to finish above either of them. But I really do think we're better than Chelsea and Man U and Arsenal, I'm afraid to say. I think we're the best of the rest, essentially. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we were kind of within 6 points of the second place team. And I wouldn't be that surprised if we finished second, to be honest. But I do, I have to hand it to Liverpool and City. They are ridiculous. Both of them are ridiculous. I find Liverpool the most exciting team to watch. But City just get the job done. They're robots. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the worry for the Premier League. But in terms of that, thank you so much for your time today, Chris. It's been fantastic to speak to you. And so, just for everybody, again, remember to check out the Extra Inch podcast. We'll be having a lot more of our analysis through the season as well. But I guess you can be happy that you were the first as well.
Yeah, I've had to set the standard. I hope I've done all right.
Yeah, I think the problem is now everybody's got to replicate how good you were, mate.
Very
But yeah,
kind.
we'll see you again probably in the season, and no doubt it will be a pleasure again when we chat a bit later on. But thank you for your time today.
Cheers.